All right, welcome to the Sweet Talk. Today is Monday, July 19th, 2021, the first show of the summer. And yes, I did take off a few weeks and now we're back. I am your host, Kim Matina. And today I am so happy to have on my show, third time now, Miss Sarah Kiefer. She is a Google certified trainer and educator and innovator, and she has so much to offer that we're going to talk about Google Forms. But first, Sarah, why don't you introduce yourself? Say hello to everybody.
Thanks, Kim, and third time's a charm. And yes, Jake Miller, the whole reason I'm doing this for the third time is because I heard you said you were on there for the third time, and I was like, oh my gosh, I've got to.
Oh, is that the only reason why? Come on.
Absolutely not. I'm wearing my purple. I tried to color coordinate with the application that I'm talking about.
Ah.
See, I have to help myself out every sense of the way with fashion. But anyway, my name is Sarah Kiefer, and I am a technology integration specialist for the Ross Local Schools here in northwest of Cincinnati, Ohio. And I absolutely adore my job. I love working with the teachers and the students and taking technology and making it work, and sometimes challenging the teachers and the kids to think about using technology in a different way other than just like, I want to log into this program. I love the conversations that I have with the teachers and working with them to kind of alter their thinking as far as like technology goes. A lot of times, things happen and programs are dumped on us, or we're learning a new program, and I have found that having someone that's willing to sit side by side with you and help you through those and like learn with you, it has just made a huge difference. And I love learning, and I feel like what I do is just constant professional development. So I can't say enough how much I love my job.
Well, that's good. And we were just chatting before, and we're both Shake Up Learner trainers.
Yes.
So we'll be working with Casey Bell from Texas, y'all.
Yeah, I gotta work on that, y'all, because
I have to work on that too. This New Yorker just can't get into that Southern Belle thing, but but anyway, I know you have your blog, your actual website is called techyoucando.com, and I know you have a lot of great information on there to help teachers and really around the world, really tidbits of using apps and things. So I know today one of your apps that you're going to showcase is Google Forms, and how you can go further with it and not just use it for an assessment or a survey, but to actually take it a step further. So I'm really excited to hear your ideas about using Google Forms and taking it a step further. So why don't you take it away?
Okay, and I want everyone to know, I do believe, just like my website says, tech you can do. So what I try to showcase is like the simple things, but just things that maybe you're not aware of yet. So I don't want anyone to feel like intimidated. Google Forms was my very, very first love as far as Google products go. And I know that sounds kind of weird, but I was teaching 7th and 8th grade, and at the time I had about 150 kids. So grading was a big process for me. Even something short and quick, you can imagine like 2 questions per kid times 150. That's
a lot.
That's enough time. So I had heard about like this thing, and I sat down with the lady that was the tech integration at the time, and she showed me about Google Forms, and I was just like, oh my gosh, this is like a Scantron, like on steroids, right? And at the time we only had like one cart that you could share of iPads. So it was just that constant like, ooh, and my kids were like re-energized to take these tests, and like through doing that, like just seeing how, I mean, a multiple choice quiz kind of became like this little adventure that we could go on. And it was like, wow, like I think that was probably the first time that I saw technology in a classroom in a different way other than it's straight up its use. I saw the excitement that the kids had. I saw how even giving my 8th graders like a 10-question multiple choice test through Google Forms. At the time, they didn't have the self-grading aspect of it, so I used Flubaroo.
Mm-hmm.
And I was just like, oh my gosh, like, where have you been?
Yeah.
The stats that you'd get back, and my kids soon, saw that you could add in an email, and we didn't have student email addresses. So I'd email it to their parents, and like all of that could happen, like bam, bam, bam. And these kids were like responding to this. And I'm like, this is so strange, like a 10-question multiple choice quiz, and these kids are excited about. And I was just like, okay, like we're on this. And I just kind of like ran with it. So sometimes it's just finding a little bit of a recipe.
Breakthrough, like a breakthrough.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. And it really did kind of invigorate my thinking as far as implementing technology in a classroom and how you can use it and it not be like for state testing, kind of
Right.
heavy. So what I did, Kim, is I created a Google form with all of the information that I'm going to share. So I've got the link. I don't know if you want to go ahead and paste it for anybody that's interested or not. But what I try to do is showcase the application within the application that I am talking about. So this Google form that I want to share with everybody, I've got 5 things that can help you go further with forms. And what I did was, obviously, if you look at it, there's more than 5 multiple choice answers. And that's what this question is. It's a multiple choice, but it's the second option. It's a branching style form to where if you select one of those answers, it's going to take you to a different part. And I guess, can I share my
You
screen?
could share. Yeah, you could screen share. So on the bottom, you see the button that says share.
I totally forgot. I'm like, here, just like talking to myself. I'm like, wait a minute, let's just share this screen. Okay. Am I?
So just go to a new tab, like go to the tab that, yeah, there you go.
Okay. So do you see my form now, right?
Yeah, I see it. Yep.
Okay. So these last ones, the connect with Sarah, that's just if you have other questions and you want to connect with me, like my Twitter, my website, all that kind of good stuff. And then the last one is after we go through this, if you're interested in learning more, I just did a webinar with Dr. Desiree Alexander, who is my Google Innovator Coach. And we did Level Up with Google Forms. It was part of our 6-part series this summer. Last summer, we did Intro to Everything. So I've got those resources as well as some other resources if you're interested about forms. But like what I did here was like 5 things that I really think can be easily overlooked. And whether you follow along now, whether you're watching the YouTube, whether you're listening to the podcast later, and you get a hold of the form and you want to look at it, like a lot of this is meant to be like self-teaching too. So don't be afraid to jump in here. This honestly is a form. I don't anticipate anyone ever getting to that submit button. It's not the purpose of it. I'm not interested in people submitting because there's really nothing to submit. But it shows you that Google Forms can be used, like Kim said at the beginning, for far more than an assessment or a survey. I'm using this, in this case, for individualized or differentiated learning. So if you already know about the settings, skip that one. If you want to learn about branching style questions, click here. If you want to learn about data validation, click here. So that's my thinking with this Google Forms. And teachers can definitely use this in their classroom for review purposes or for introducing learning. Maybe it's a question that you're posing. Who do you think did this in history? Or why do you think this event was so important in history? And have a couple options, and then you branch them out.
That's a great way of looking at it with forms. I never thought of it that way, to use it for differentiating as far as giving them like a menu. Like to me, this is a menu, and then they pick which option they want to go. This is a great recommendation, Sarah. I really like this.
Thank you. I kind of thought it was like when the idea struck me, I was like, oh, I've never thought about that. But that's a perfect way of using forms because let's just jump into the key settings. We won't spend a whole lot of time on this one because I mean, settings to me can be kind of exciting, but I know for a lot of people. So, here, if you come across this later and you want to read about, how it's set up, although update, have you heard? And I don't think it's available. I don't think I have it yet. But the settings is not going to only be, I guess, in that gear wheel. It's going to pop down and be like a third tab. So you have questions,
Right.
responses, and then settings. I thought, oh, that's brilliant. The colors, but then down here, this is kind of, the joy of this one is, hey, I'm ready to go back and learn something new, or thanks, I'm all done. So they can constantly be looping in their own time. And imagine in a teacher's classroom to where if, you ask that question and a student picks an answer, maybe you're going ahead and you're correcting their wrong thinking, or, hey, watch this video to give them another idea, or, to layer on another aspect of the content that you're trying to get across to them. But it builds that, individualization. I think of it as like a choose your own adventure. If you remember,
That's what I'm thinking. Like, but in forms, not in slides, like, so this is great. I really like this idea, but the teacher has to know how to create the form using the branch style.
And
that's the key.
Ironically, Kim, that's the next question the next option on here is the branching style questions. And what I wanted to do with this one is I really want to showcase, because this is probably hands down my favorite way that I use branching style questions. So if you click on this, it's going to take you into the student view. And this is an activity that I did with my 8th graders. 8th graders in social studies in Ohio study American history. So I kind of set the scene, and I was given from the teacher that I took over, had this all on paper. So this is not an activity that I created. I did not dream up any of this. I just implemented it with technology because I could see a value in this. Now, keep in mind, students do still have this tally sheet, so they are doing some stuff on paper. Okay, so this is kind of where you use tech for what it's really good for, and then you let the paper do what the paper is really good for. So I just had them put in an email address. And again, this is not my own email address. But then they get here, and it's a little scenario. Like, here's round 1. And we're talking about the Mayflower and the Pilgrims coming over. So I give them this little scene. Okay, you're founding this colony, and then this last one, subtract 25 lives immediately. So they've got their paper, and they're tracking how many colonists that are surviving in their colony. And it's all going to be based on the decisions that they make.
Okay.
So then we go to the next one, and here's where they put their names in here. And then as a group, they do this in a group, and they have to make a decision. So after you unload your supplies from the Mayflower and you start building, here's your group's first decision. So based on if they pick, A or B, something is going to happen. So as a group, they're talking about it. I want to do this. I want to do this, or, that kind of thing. And I guess I have to put something in here. So Kim, do you have a preference? Do you want to do send the ship back, or do you want to keep it anchored?
Keep it anchored.
Okay, so we'll do that. And then based on their answer now, you chose to do this, good choice. And here's the result of your decision. 3 people still die. But then what I can also do is, because this is just a text box, by the way, if you'd sent it back, you'd have lost 6 people.
Okay.
So imagine this in a classroom when you have multiple groups playing this, but they're talking about it. They're coming up with a group decision, and their decisions are impacting, their colony on paper. But it really is like a choose your own adventure.
It's kind of like a game too. Mm-hmm. Like you gamified it a little bit.
Right.
They have to keep track of the survivors and.
Right. And then it keeps going on, and it talks about different jobs that they have, or different actions that they do. Some decisions have more than one, option to pick from, more than 2 options to pick from. But I'll take you now into, because obviously I own this form, I'm going to take you into the backside so we can kind of see how this all plays together. And this is the part where anytime I show this to teachers, how you do these branching, they immediately feel overwhelmed. And I say, but remember, just take a deep breath. It is built like one question at a time. And as long as you can kind of keep that in mind, you'll be okay. So you can see right here, this form has 40 sections to it, which that's a pretty ginormous form.
That's a big form. And that's what I was looking at too. Like, how big is it, you know?
Right. And another thing, like this also helps teachers. If you see my scroll bar over here, you can see if it's, yeah, there, like how small it is, how far it has to scroll. But here's where I say, but look, you break it down and you do one section at a time. And here's the beauty. It has to be a multiple choice question. And well, can I do a drop down? No, it has to be multiple choice. And then the way that you make it become a branching, put in your options here, but then you come to your skinny snowman and you make it say, go to section based on answer. So that has to be checked. And then you get this second, I feel like I'm zoomed in a little bit. Maybe it's just because my answers are so long, but you get this.
Yeah, go ahead and zoom in a little bit. I can't do it on my machine because it's asking me for an email address and I don't know if it's in your domain. So I'm just watching along with what you have. But yeah, if you can zoom in, that'd be great. Oh, that's better.
Yeah. You can put in your email if you want to move forward.
Okay. It's not restricted to your domain?
No.
Okay.
So I've got the decision here, and here's one option of what the kids could do. So that was where you send the ship back, and you chose the second option, keeping it anchored nearby. So based on that, I sent decision 1 to answer A, but you picked decision 1, answer B. So I have those pre-built, and all I'm telling the form to do is when somebody clicks in that bubble, go to
that section. Yeah. Yep.
So if you're a linear thinker, it really is kind of, okay, so if you go here, you're going to go up here, or you're going to go down here, and it build it as you go. So the section really is your powerhouse. That's what makes it work.
So what are some tips that you can offer for naming schemes? Because, like in the previous section, section 3, I guess, for option B, it says go to section 5, decision number 1, answer B. So obviously you came up with some kind of naming scheme, so you knew which section that question pertains to. Do you have any tips on that for people to keep in mind when they're creating these sections?
I would say my number 1 tip is keep it simple. So for me on this particular activity, I had these broken down into, I want to say like 10 decisions. So this scenario is decision 1. And then that's how I drove my sections that come below it, because this is now you could put an A here and you could put a B here. I feel like that's kind of maybe not necessary, but I wanted to be able to, like you're saying, I wanted to be able to find the right section. So the naming convention, this is decision 1, answer A, because it's the one at the top. And this is decision 1, answer B, because it's the second one.
Okay.
So I really kind of kept it super simple, knowing that I had, multiple decisions to work the answers out with.
Yeah, because you have to keep that in mind, because if you start giving different names, you're going to get confused and lost to what answer or what choice goes with what section,
Right. And that keep it simple.
Keep it simple. Yep.
We're definitely not doing a straight just 10 question assessment here or 5 question survey, right? So we're kicking it up a notch, but with that, you don't have to go like crazy far. So just keep that in mind. And then the other thing, just make sure that you're this is the other part that I think people forget about. This after section 3, continue to the next section. There are options down here that you can force it to completely go to a different section. So just be careful. And probably my biggest tip with just branching forms in general is go back when you think you've got it, go back and do the form yourself
Oh
before you
yeah.
send it out.
Yeah, definitely. Yep, you're right.
You know, it's like if you were to share a video in class, you don't just like give it to the kids. You should preview it.
You watch it first, you would hope, right?
Would hope. And I know not, sometimes it's on a wing and a prayer and you're like, oh, I think that, yeah. But that's the other thing. Or if you're working with a group of people, a team of other teachers, having one of them work through it, that's another good tip to do. But once you get going with this, I think you're gonna find so many applications for it. I would use it with reading passages as well. So I give them a passage that they had to read and then answer options, kind of like a comprehension check. But if they didn't get the right answer, it would say, go back and reread it and pick a different answer. Now, in that case, I wanted them to just do the work. Like I wanted them to read and I wanted them to come up with the right answer. I was not looking to give them a score for how many they got right and how many they got wrong. Like I wanted them to do that good reading. And if I gave them a grade, it was like, check that you did it. Because I think
Right.
that's like submit it so that I know that you completed this activity.
And you
But
can even put a video in here too.
oh, absolutely. You
Yeah.
can put videos in, you can add in images. This
I
one,
really like this. This is a great way to use forms. I never thought of using it this way.
yeah, when it clicked with me for this activity, I was like that nerdy, giddy, like I couldn't stop until I got this. And I will say this was probably hands down one of my favorite activities that we did in the classroom. And the kids, people are like dying in this. But wait a minute, Mrs. Kiefer, what do you mean? I'm like, yeah, but guys, like, we're talking about like the 1600s. Come on. Like, they don't have the modern amenities that we do. And, these decisions do have real consequence, like they did back then. For my
Yeah.
kids, obviously, this is all just fake, but, and this one, they're going out to a group of Native Americans, and you can layer in a lot of different
Oh,
aspects.
definitely. Definitely. And you can even put, links to different
Oh,
websites in there and everything. I mean, I really like how you designed this. This is a really great idea, Sarah. Really.
yeah. Like I said,
Everybody's always using slides but this is I don't know, to me this is a little bit more in my face as far as like what the options are. It's not a guessing game. Like it's either this or this, you could have three choices, it's just a little bit more it's just a little bit more clearer to me.
well, I also think it's different, right?
Mhm.
Everybody does slides, and I love Google Slides.
Oh, yeah.
Oh my gosh, I do. And I've even done a choose your own activity with some fourth graders with Google Slides. Applied Digital Skills actually has that as one of their lessons where you use Google Slides to create. Now, for them, it was kind of hard for them to wrap their brains around it because of the sheer number of slides, which would be very comparable to the number of sections that you have on here. But for them, it was just kind of like the story aspect. And this one 100% has the story flowing through it. But this one is the story itself is a little bit more engaging, I think, than what these fourth graders were attempting. But it works pretty
Yeah.
much the
It
same,
it works. I mean, I would definitely use this in middle school. I
Yeah.
mean, even middle schoolers, they don't know how to do the hyperlinks to different slides within one presentation. So, giving them the choice to do either or, it would be interesting to see how many students actually chose Google Forms, because I'm not sure if they really know how to create a form in that way. Slides, I think they can kind of get through it. They may not know it, but they can figure it out. With forms, it's a whole nother, I don't think it's that intuitive. They need to have some kind of guidance on it, which is good because it gives them exposure to something different.
And I would also say on that note, I think some kids would do really well to do this with a slide. And I think other kids would do
Yeah.
really well to do this with a form. And that's where I think we need to stay conscious of, you could do this with a Google Doc too, if you use like the bookmarks and all that, and the, link to different parts of the doc. But it's, what are we as teachers willing to allow our students or encourage our students most of the time to try?
Or even allow ourselves to even
Correct.
try something new too. So it's both ways, right?
Right.
Yeah.
Right.
This is a great idea. I really like this. I'm going to try this, definitely.
Oh, you should go all the way through this activity. If I do say so myself, the activity, when it was done on paper, the kids were coming up to me, like they'd have it and they would read the scenarios, and then they would come up and say like, Mrs. Kiefer, we're going to pick for decision 2, option B. So then I'd have my stack of papers and I'd go through and I'd be like, okay, so here's option B's answer. You go back and you read it. And then it would say exactly what decision 2, answer B says here. And then they'd have to do the math, and then they'd come back and they'd hand me that card back. And so I looked at forms as a way that, they didn't have to, the coming up and back kind of thing. Like they could work through this.
Right.
So I totally adore this activity.
Yeah, I'm going to try this though. I'm going to gear it toward computer science though, so I'll let you know.
Yeah, please do.
I created something already for a game, like for the students to create a game using Azobots. Yeah. And I did it in slides where they had to hyperlink everything. So, I have to hyperlink everything. And then I had formulas, created and populated different parts of the spreadsheet so they can find the answers. But I could have did that in here. I could have did the interface is really the slides part. I could have did that with Google Forms.
Yeah.
So I'll have to show it to you one day.
Please do. And then that kind of also leads into when you're talking about the formulas and all that with sheets, the data validation that you can do with Google Forms. If you're familiar with digital breakouts.
Yeah.
Teachers use that, the data validation, I guess, to indicate whether you got the code right or wrong.
Yeah, the combination. Yep.
Yep. So let's jump into that, because that might also help when you're talking about that game with forms and maybe shifting it over that way. You could use the data validation for them to see whether or not what their answer is the right one or not. So here I've just got a quick form. Again, I'm going to jump into it's going to take you to, so here I've got a password. Like I have this password protected form, and I will say, yes, there are ways that kids can hack this. And I'm kind of over that conversation of, well, how do we prevent them from, guys, if you're wanting to password protect a form, please just be aware. It's on the computer, right? Like a lot of kids are pretty tech savvy. So be aware of that and use it when it's appropriate. And if you really just don't want them to access the form, don't hand out the link until you're ready for it. Kind of those types of things. I look at the password protection kind of just as almost like a fun kind of layer, for kids to.
All right. So first of all, I thought they fixed that part. I thought they fixed that where they can't see the password.
I tell you, then any child that is watching this is going to have the answer.
Well, I thought they fixed it. They didn't fix it.
The last group messaging that I read about it is, oops, nope, we can still see it.
Oh, okay.
So now, honestly, I just, if you need to password protect something and it needs to be that, please don't use a Google form. Use something else. So if you don't want them getting into your tests, this is going to be a better option. Okay, let me go back If you really don't want,
Lock it.
just turn
It off. Yeah.
accepting responses.
Yeah.
They can't get into it then. Okay, there's no hack for that unless they're hacking your account.
Yeah.
So that's where I say, technology is not the best word, infallible,
Well,
and
yeah.
extending that challenge. And sometimes it's the challenge that the kids want, and then they're not focused on doing the work that you want them to. So just keep this kind of stuff in mind is what I tell teachers too. So here, honestly, they can't go on to the next. Oh, they can. I think I turned it off. Sorry. I don't have it required. You see my little asterisk.
Oh yeah, I see that now. Yeah.
Okay, so if I was really fast, like lightning, I could do it, but I can't. So, if you start typing, maybe I turned off the password for this purpose. So I could enter it. Let's log in to.
Let's see.
Let's see what I did here. So I'm going to go on the editing side.
Did it get locked up?
It's just
there it goes.
There we go. So short answer is how you do this one. I do have it on. I just have to require it. And then again, it's that little skinny snowman. I love that little guy. Yep. Whether he's down there or he's somewhere else, just look for that snowman. Sometimes Kimmy gets tired and he lays down. So he's just a sleeping snowman at that point. Make sure you still click on him because he still is offering you options.
He's giving you options.
Yeah, he's just a little tired. I mean, the guy's all over the place. That's what I tell students, and they're like, "Hold on, I'm sleeping." I hope with the elementary crowd, that joke goes over really well with them.
Oh gosh, yeah. Now, not middle school. I just say the 3-dot menu. The 3-dot menu.
7th and 8th graders would totally have loved it.
I just say 3 dots. Hit the 3 dots. You gotta be specific with them.
Oh yeah, totally. But use the response validation, and then you have some options here. Depending again on what you're creating the password to be. It could be some sort of length, which language arts teachers really kind of like the length one. I cannot say that I've ever personally used it. So if you say, answer this in 200 words or 200 characters or less or whatever. So if you click on length, it's going to give you a maximum or a minimum. Language arts teachers, this could help because again, sometimes
narrow it down, keep things a little bit more focused.
Yep. And people like me really struggle with the maximum. And I always go like, oh, but I had so much more to say. And then you have to really figure out what's the important.
Right. That's what the limit does. Like it constrains you. So you have to get to the point.
And notice it says character, not words.
Yeah.
So that's every space, every apostrophe.
Yep.
You might get some bad grammar in there. I really think if kids are pushing it, they're going to drop that apostrophe so I can have that. No, probably not. But number, text, length, I like the regular expression. And then I like that it matches. And then you type in whatever you want it to be. Now, if you were doing one of those digital breakouts, maybe your code has something to do with the whatever that activity was, like maybe it gave them a series of letters. And then when they type the code in, that tells them that they got that puzzle solved. Right. And then did you know, Kim, that if you don't put in an error message here, that it just tells them that it has to match whatever your expression is?
Is that the default?
Yeah.
Yeah, I always put a message in there.
Yeah. So I just want to show people because that I think that's like, well, what if I don't want to tell them? Like right. I don't want to give them a hint. And I'm like, well, this is what's going to be what happens. You type, hi, my name is, and if you go to hit next, oh, it says much
match. Ah, yeah.
No, see, it did not do that to me the other day. Whatever. Well, maybe because it matches. I don't know. But I always say something like, sorry.
I always try again. That's what I do too. Yeah.
If you're working with the younger crowd, a lot of times this is a good way to add in a hint, like don't forget to capitalize, or remember to, if it's a math expression or a number, if you have it set to be a certain, way, just sometimes for the younger crowd, it's a little bit more helpful to give them a very explicit hint.
Yeah, I agree.
But then that's all it is. And if you were a classroom teacher and you wanted to use that password protection before kids got into that form, if they see, I'm not capitalizing,
Yep.
I'm going to let them in. So go back and make sure that they have the right code. And then
And they
boom,
get it. Yeah.
now
Yeah.
you're into your form. So that's pretty cool. The data validation, as long as you're willing to try it. And again, big tip, do what I did, double check it to make sure it's working the way that you're anticipating it working, because I mean, it's going to be a nightmare if you go to try
Yeah.
to do the thing and Ms. Kiefer, I can't get in the form. And then, hands go up in class and it's.
Yeah, no, you have to test it. And sometimes it's better if you have somebody that is not in your circle test it
Mm-hmm.
so that they can break it and see
Right.
if it's correct or not. So yeah,
Right.
I totally agree. All
Yep.
right, what's your next trick there?
Okay, let's go back and see what's next. Oh, the copying and pasting. This was huge for me when I realized this. And the reuse part is, I would say it's newer, right? Like it's not the newest piece of forms, but I still don't think teachers are super aware of the reuse aspect. So the copying and pasting, 100% super crazy easy, because a lot of us probably are converting. Like that was a big project of mine, was converting my paper quizzes, which were all on Google Docs, and I just print them out and make copies of them. But converting all of that to digital, and I'm sitting there and I'm retyping all of the answers, it's taking me forever.
Yeah, it's too long. Yep.
So let's showcase this. I'm going to go into the editing side of my form, which was over here. And I'm going to go down to here, and I'm going to insert this question. I'm not insert it, sorry, I used the wrong word here. I'm going to, come on, let me click on it. It's still loading. There we go, it's starting to, it's not storming, so.
Oh, there it goes.
There we go. Okay.
It's tired.
It's been a long day. What is it, Monday? Yeah.
It's Monday.
So I'm gonna add in a question. And a lot of times what I do, and I show teachers to do, is split your screen. And there are some shortcuts. I kind of like doing it manually. I don't know why. I don't know. It's just more comfortable. So I've got my question here, right? So I'm going to copy that. I'm going to come over here, get back down to where I was. There we go. And just paste it in. Now that is awesome, right? Like everybody knows that. But here I've got these 5 options. And maybe you have them A, B, C, D, but I've got them currently just as bullet points. So I'm just going to copy, like I copied them as a group. And when you paste it in option 1, it splits it out for you.
Ah, okay. Oh, so you don't have to do each one at a time.
And I've seen this
little trick.
And I've seen this work really, really well when teachers are creating forms and they want to have the drop down of all of their students' names. And they're like, I have to type in every kid. I'm like, no, do you have a roster somewhere? And they're like, oh, yeah. So we open up their roster, and we've done it, I believe, I am like 90% sure I've done it from a Google Sheet as well. You just select that, copy and paste it over, and boom.
Huh.
It splits each one into its own.
Okay.
And I would guess it would work if it was a checkbox too, but a lot of times this is you're taking a multiple choice quiz from paper and you're converting it over to a Google form. So that copy and paste.
That's a good little trick. Yeah.
You can get through that
Very quickly.
and efficiently too. And I know there are some add-ons that take your docs and move it into
Yeah,
form.
that's what I was just going to ask you. I think there is, right?
Yeah, and I think it's called docs to
Docs to
form.
forms, I think. Yeah.
The thing that I hesitate with add-ons like that is sometimes they get a little glitchy. I'm not saying that that one is. I personally never use it, but sometimes I also then, when teachers tell me about this is when I sit down, I go and have, do you have to do a multiple choice quiz? Like, is there another way? So their intention, I'm like, I'll show you how to do it. It's really easy and it's slick. But maybe you want to start thinking about, like, could you have an open-ended question? Could you have the kids creating something or making something that better gets the learning across? And so I use this kind of like as a gateway conversation to kind of inspiring them to think a little bit more than the multiple choice.
Yeah.
It's always an option, and it's not a bad option. It's just an opportunity that I try to capitalize on in having those conversations with teachers. And a lot of times they'll go ahead and do the quiz like this, and then they'll loop back with me like, you said that the other day about me. Like, do you have any ideas? Or I really would like to try. And then we go and we have another conversation. So it's just one of those, like, I like to plant that idea.
Yeah. Well, that's the whole point, right? Yeah.
Now, the reuse is, again, I would say, and I can close this out so I can make my screen a little bit bigger. The reuse is newer. It's not crazy new, but I think this is another really, really valuable little tidbit that not all of the teachers that use forms are really aware of. And it's this little paper with the arrow on it, and that you can actually bring in questions you've created on other forms and pull them over.
Yeah, because a lot of people complain they have to create, they have to recreate the quiz or, whatever they're doing. Now you can just kind of go find it, pick the question, and then import it into or reuse it into your current form.
Yes, and I love how when you utilize the connections that Google is providing, like you want to import, you're not going to, like, all of these are my forms. You're not going to see docs, you're not going to see slides, you're not going to see sheets, because I'm going to import a question from a form, and that's a lot less intimidating than having to jump into your drive and finding that form from last year that you want to recreate, or
it filters it out,
right?
Yep.
So it's really nice, and I love it's like a little thumbnail, like preview. I'm a very visual person, so it's very helpful to see that. So let's say I just want to pull a question from that form. I've selected it, I clicked on it once, and then I'm going to say select. And then here are all of my questions over here. This is the part where it's a little dry. It's not as visual as I would like it to be. And you just put a check mark, and you can actually insert more than one, as well as like the section headers. So if you capitalize on that and you're bringing over chunks, this can make it
really, yeah, I didn't know that you can bring in the section headers.
Yep. And you select down here, it even says like import and then in the parentheses. So you do that, and there it is. This section.
Yep, there it is. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. And it's just like it literally copies it over.
No, that's good. I think it's one less commonly known or commonly used feature,
Right.
especially if you're not really tech savvy. You're not really looking for that. You just want to get in and create your questions and get out. You know what I mean? So yeah, that's actually a good feature to showcase, Sarah.
Yep. Thank you, Kim. I should be a little more gracious. Thank you, Kim, for.
Oh no, you're fine, silly.
And then the last thing, and this is one I feel like it is so far overlooked, and teachers, they get that like, oh, I've got to create it from scratch. the template gallery. Docs has a template gallery. Forms has a template gallery. Slides, Sheets even has a template gallery. Google Sites.
Google Sites, right? Yeah.
And Google Sites, did you hear? I know this is not our topic of today, but Google Sites is going to soon allow within your domain for you to submit a site to be a template. So all of those teachers that want their students to have like a portfolio on a site, but how do you make copies of sites and the headache that that can be, soon, within the next couple of weeks is my understanding, is you can have that built within your domain, and like you can put your template site in there and then direct the kids to the site's template gallery and they can make their own copy of it.
No, I didn't know that.
Yeah, I recently read about it, and I was like, oh my gosh, like that is what everybody has such headaches about. Like, how do you share a site? How do you make copies of it?
Oh, that's good to know. That's good to know. I didn't know that.
Yep, template gallery. It's
Yeah.
wonderful.
Where is it in sites? Well, is it in the same? Do you have to go somewhere different, or is that all in the works still? Or
It'll show up like this. I saw like a preview of it when I was reading. Google had pushed out on their blog, and it looked exactly like the other template galleries. Like, here's the general, like everybody has access when you create a form, but it'll have like I'm in my trainer domain. So when you come over here, submit a new template.
Oh, okay, I got it. All right, cool. No, yeah, I didn't know that.
Yeah, and I always just end up searching like, well, with forms and sheets and docs, I go into new and then I hover over that little side triangle and it says either brand new or from template gallery.
Yeah.
But sites doesn't have that yet, maybe. So I just do sites template gallery, and they have, I think, 10 in there currently.
Okay. Yeah, see, I never used the template gallery.
For any of them?
No.
Kim, make a party invite. Like, let's throw a party at your house. Here's a party invite already to go.
Yeah, I got to check them out. I forget about them.
Uh-huh. And it's so easy to do. This t-shirt sign up. I mean, how many times are you the teacher moderator advisor for a group and you need to get everybody's t-shirt sizes? Here you go. They've got one. And anything that can take off some of that, I would consider it kind of tedious to, name, size. They've got some of this, and then you go in and you make it fit perfectly.
Right. Yeah, you tweak it.
Yeah.
It's just good to know. I'm going to have to pay a little bit more attention to the templates because I just really don't in any of the apps. I just don't. I just always create new,
And I'm right there with you, Kim. It's when I'm talking to teachers.
Yeah.
They're new to these. I always try to, now you don't have to recreate the wheel. Okay.
Yeah.
If you want to get started, it's those new teachers or the ones that are new to Google and they just have that panic look in their eyes. How am I going to do this? Deep breath here, guys.
Yeah.
Like, here are some that you can start with. Open one, play with it, kind of learn the ins and the outs, and then if you want to completely create your own or, just work off of the one that you've got. Sometimes it's just that little spark of inspiration that really sets the tone for your future learning. If you have that nasty first taste with it, like, oh, I tried it and I couldn't get it to work. So here's a nice first step using these.
I'm going into docs.google.com and I'm looking for templates. So template gallery. There we go. Look at that.
And that docs one is, I think, really well built out.
Yeah, I'm in forms. Yeah, look at this. I never really browsed the template gallery at all. Especially in forms. I never did.
They don't have a ton. I'm not going to try to make it better. The docs one is the one that always amazes me. The book reports, class notes, lesson plans, essays. You scroll down and, I mean, how many teachers have to teach some sort of letter writing? There are template letters right here. You could even have the kids like stop when you get to the template gallery. And I know, again, I know we've shifted. We're not on forms anymore,
Yeah, no, that's fine though, but
but
this
have
is
them,
this
there's
is good
five
to know.
letters.
Yeah, there's so much in here for docs templates, there's resumes, there's proposals, like there's so much in here.
And
Yeah.
if you have them even just not even click on any of these, and I'm imagining this in a classroom, you have your students looking at these five letters: letter, business letter, informal letter. Okay, guys, what's the same? What's different? What makes this one a business letter? What makes this one informal? What makes this one different? Like what are you noticing? And have the kids kind of do that exploration, that discovery. And you haven't even, like, as a teacher, you've prepped what? The link to the temple gallery?
Yeah.
If
Yeah.
you even do that, tell them,
Yeah.
like, I just type docs template gallery, boom, it's the first link, go to it. Older students doing a resume, which Applied Digital Skills has a wonderful lesson. It walks them through creating resumes. But again, pick a resume.
Yeah. Yeah. Now I'm glad that you brought that up, like again, I know you were talking about forums, but it's all tied together. So, just being aware of the template gallery in the app
Yeah.
will definitely help with whatever you're doing in the class with the kids. This was great, Sarah.
Oh,
Thank you for showcasing everything.
oh, sure. I mean, Google is a big passion of mine. Everybody, around me, they know that. Like, I love Google. So if
Well,
I,
you're in the right company.
I know, right?
This was great. I really loved how you used forms for differentiating, right from the beginning and giving them the choice in the menu, basically like a learning menu to pick what they want to know. I mean, that to me right there, you got me sold right from the start. I loved how you came up with that idea. That's awesome. And I mean, if I have time, I'm not sure if over the summer, but I might end up taking my slide presentation that I did, and then maybe converting it over into forms. I don't know. I have to see
Yeah,
what how much work's involved and how much time I have.
right.
Um, but I really like how you started off with the Google Forms and saying that you can use it for differentiating and learn the menus. And might I might actually take your idea and share it out with my staff at school as well, because I think a lot of staff, like, they get nervous when
Right.
they have to say, oh, differentiate, oh, I'll just do this, I'll do that. But if you put it in a learning menu and use forms and branch it out, you're all good, and then you can reuse it.
100%.
you
And
know you can actually make a copy of the form and reuse it if you ever wanted to. You don't have to, you just don't recreate the wheel. So no, this was great. I'm so glad that you took the time to be on. You have such a such simple tips, but they're so powerful. So, and that's what I love about having you come on and share, because you know we all know that these things are here, like all these tech gurus. We all know that they're here, but to use them in the content that you want to, and for the specific purpose that you need, and showcase it that way, I think that's where the difference is. And I'm glad that you come along and you share these simple things, and then you show and you explain how they can be used in a practical way. So for that, I thank you so much for being on today.
you're welcome.
You
And
are a gem.
the last thing I'd say though is a lot of teachers, I had that Welcome to Plymouth Rock activity. I had it. I just
Just
layered
copied it.
in.
You just copied it, and then you pasted it, and then you laid it out differently.
Well, I only had it on paper. That's how old of an activity it was. So I did have to type it. But I'm thinking, like, some of these review activities that teachers, do, and math, especially when they have those wrong thinkings, and that they're going to out of this word problem and they have to come up with the equation. You
Mhm.
know where most of the time kids are going to get things wrong, and you can, highlight that and go, okay, you've got A, B, and C. A is right, great, congratulations, move on. B, you know why their thinking was wrong. So when they pick that, they go to the next section, and you're either reteaching them, or you've got a video for them to watch, or you've got an explanation, something. Hey, lay
Yeah.
them in a moat where they can hear you speak.
Yeah. Yeah.
So it's kind of that, how can we use tech to better help? Because then I imagine as they're reviewing, you probably also know this kid's been out for 3 days. I need to pull him, or she's been struggling and she's asked me for help, but she can't come before school. She can't come after school. I got to use my time. When the kids are able to kind of self-sustain, and then you can pull the ones that you need to,
Right.
that
Right.
extra too.
Yeah.
But
No, it all comes together. I mean, it's using the tech in the way that is going to make your life easier, and to be able to communicate with your students, and with the content, and have them connect to it. So that's why we do what we do, right?
mhm, exactly, exactly.
Well, that concludes our show for tonight. I want to thank everyone for watching. I really appreciate everyone's patience. I took some time off, and I'm trying to get back into it slowly, not get myself overwhelmed. So I want to thank everyone, and again, thank Sarah for being on the Sweet Talk tonight. Until next time, everyone, have a great evening.
And thanks
Bye.
for having me, Kim.
You don't go anywhere.
Oh, I'm not.
Okay.